Part 2. Seeking Truth. Chapter 3. Obstacles. Your mind should be like a room with many open windows. Let the breeze flow in from all, but refuse to be blown away by any one. Gandhi. Hopefully I've made clear the important benefits of seeking truth. Now let's discuss how this search is to be carried out. For our pursuit of truth to be effective, we must first recognize and address two key obstacles. 1. Overconfidence. I recently found this little nugget of wisdom in a Come Follow Me study manual. Sometimes the biggest obstacle to learning is our assumption that we don't need to learn, that we already know. Leo Tolstoy expressed a similar idea. The most difficult subjects can be explained to the most slow-witted man if he has not formed any idea of them already. But the simplest thing cannot be made clear to the most intelligent man if he is firmly persuaded that he knows already without a shadow of doubt what is laid before him. This human tendency to overestimate our own understanding, even while much of the road of learning still lies ahead, can blind us to our need for further growth. As Alexander Pope famously warned, a little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep or taste not the Pierian spring. There shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again. In other words, humility and open-mindedness are essential as we grow in knowledge and experience. We must recognize that absolute truth is far too vast for any one person to grasp fully. And no matter how experienced or educated we become, there will always be more to discover. Consider the humility of Socrates, who, having dedicated his life to wisdom, concluded, "I know that I know nothing." Being humble and open-minded is especially difficult when we encounter viewpoints that contradict our own. Our instinct is often to scoff and dismiss these ideas as wrong. In such moments, however, the imagery of the tree of truth may again be helpful. Just as two branches may protrude in opposite directions from the same tree trunk, two branches of truth may seem to contradict each other and yet be equally rooted in absolute truth. As Niels Bohr put it, the opposite of one profound truth may very well be another profound truth. Consider pairs like justice and mercy, individualism and community, liberalism and conservatism, idealism and realism, confidence and humility. It's also worth remembering that most of what we observe and experience exists at the periphery of truth, among its leaves and fruit. Since none of our personal trees are perfectly trimmed, might it be possible that others' lifestyles and beliefs, though different from our own, are also rooted in truth? My upbringing and choices may lead me to favor justice, for example, while you might lean toward mercy. At their source, these two branches differ little, but as they manifest in the countless leaves and fruit of individual lives, the gap between them can appear vast. Jesus underscored the importance of humility and open-mindedness in the face of such differences when he contrasted his own lifestyle with that of one of his most devout followers. John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and ye say he hath a devil. The Son of Man is come eating and drinking, and ye say, Behold, a gluttonous man and a wine-bibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. And then came the pivotal lesson. But wisdom is justified of all her children. Wisdom and truth can manifest in infinitely diverse forms. We would do well to remember that much can be learned from people who see the world differently than we do. As Benjamin Franklin noted, if everyone is thinking alike, then no one is thinking. 2. Fear. Another powerful obstacle to learning is fear, particularly our fear of the truth itself. When our beliefs are challenged, it can be disorienting and feel as though our entire world is collapsing. Familiar proverbs reflect this tendency to bury our heads in the sand rather than face cold, hard, and inconvenient truths. But why are we so afraid of truth? One reason is our psychological need for consistency. As Adam Grant explains, When it comes to our own knowledge and opinions, we often favor feeling right over being right. To admit we're wrong means acknowledging, 1, that to some degree we've been living in error, which could be painful and embarrassing. It feels good to believe you're right. Everyone knows that proud "I told you so" feeling. And 2, that we now must make a change. The only thing worse than being wrong before, you think to yourself, is continuing to be wrong now, once I know better. But change is difficult and humiliating, so it's often easier to reject new insights and cling to what's familiar. Is truth simple? Another reason we fear truth is that it can seem complex. But is it? Consider these words from Oliver Wendell Holmes. For the simplicity on this side of complexity, I wouldn't give you a fig. But for the simplicity on the other side of complexity, for that I would give you anything I have. Holmes's meaning isn't immediately obvious. When I first encountered this quote, I struggled to grasp its meaning. But as I studied it and sought others' insights, it became clearer. To clarify, let's define a few key terms. Joshua Fields Milburn explains, the Latin root of the word complex is complect, which means to interweave two or more things together. The opposite of complexity is simplicity. The word simple shares a Latin root with the word simplex, which means having only one part. Revisiting Holmes' quote with these definitions in mind, it seems that in order for the simplicity on this side to become the simplicity on the other side, it must become interwoven with other things and then undergo an unweaving process, and in that process it becomes significantly more valuable. Still murky? Consider Paul's declaration. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. As children, we learned simple lessons. Honest Abe Lincoln freed the slaves. Red, blue, and yellow are the primary colors. These simple ideas suited our young minds, but as we grow, we discover that these truths are more complicated. Study color theory, for example, and you'll discover that the cones in our eyes perceive either red, blue, or green, not yellow. Pick up a biography of Abraham Lincoln, and you'll uncover complexities, that although he was given the nickname Honest Abe, like any politician, he said things for strategic reasons. That although many considered him a great leader, others opposed his election so strongly that they sought to secede from the Union. And that though he played a big part in ending slavery in the United States, he initially advocated for relocating freed slaves to Africa. If these facts surprise you, you may feel tempted to dismiss them, or to abandon the simple teachings you received from your upbringing. You might even feel angry with me, with teachers and historians, historical figures, or history itself. You wouldn't be alone. In 2020, protesters across the United States defaced and toppled statues of historical figures, including Lincoln, Columbus, and Washington. Such can be the dangerous result of a little learning. But remember, shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, but drinking largely sobers us again. Facing complexity is uncomfortable. I've heard it compared to trying to swim across a swift river. While your feet are still securely planted on the bank of simplicity, it can require a good deal of courage and faith to dive in, fighting the violent rapids. But on the far shore lies a richer, firmer simplicity, one Holmes claimed was worth anything I have. In plain terms, our understanding typically begins as simple and shallow. As we learn more, things grow complicated. It can be easy to let this complexity bewilder us and scare us away from further learning. However, if we persevere, we eventually arrive at a deeper, wiser simplicity. Rather than idolizing Lincoln as a simple, one-dimensional, almost mythological character, you may, after finishing his biography, find yourself revering him as a more complex, complete fellow human being, someone who, despite having similar weaknesses with the rest of us, and living in a time of great prejudice and injustice, strove to live by high values and managed to accomplish things that have influenced the world in significant and enduring ways. Then, when you affirm that Honest Abe was a great U.S. president, this simple phrase will no longer represent a shallow teaching handed to you as a child, but a rich testimony rooted in deeper knowledge of the man and of life itself. Because of the often unpleasant experience of having been wrong, and because of the complexity of truth, the impulse to react fearfully to it has been conditioned in all of us to some degree. Yet we can counteract this impulse by developing a healthier relationship with truth. Jesus said, "The truth shall make you free." Keeping that promise in mind can boost your confidence in the power of truth, which will shape the way you react to the news that you were wrong. For one who has confidence in truth, such moments become occasions for celebration. Rather than dwelling on the fact that you were mistaken, you can rejoice in new access to a truth you can now adopt, moving forward more in line with it. As Kirsten Morel said, "There's no benefit to me for being wrong for longer. It's much better if I change my beliefs sooner, and it's a good feeling to have that sense of discovery, that surprise. I would think people would enjoy that." In summary, two major obstacles that can block our way to truth are 1. Overconfidence in our own knowledge and understanding, and 2. Fear of the complexity and disruptive nature of truth, which can be diminished and overcome through 1. Striving to be humble and open-minded, and 2. Cultivating confidence in the power of truth to, in the end, make you free. Additional skills and attributes that supplement truth-seeking might include the following. Self-compassion. It is inevitable that while seeking truth, we will come face to face with the mistakes and errors of our past. This can be uncomfortable, and we may be tempted to be hard on ourselves. In such moments, exercising self-compassion can make a profound difference. Dr. Kristen Neff, a professor from the University of Texas at Austin, describes self-compassion as treating yourself as you would a dear friend who is having a hard time. It means giving yourself the benefit of the doubt, separating your past self from your present self, and recognizing that you did the best you could with the understanding and abilities you had at the time. Your past mistakes were not final verdicts on your worth, but necessary stepping stones toward who you are today. Author Shauna Shapiro reminds us that we tend to be far harsher critics of ourselves than we are of others. Yet it's essential to remember that you don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and kindness. Unfortunately, for many of us, our instinctive response is not self-compassion, but self-shaming. When we reflect on our imperfections, we often slip into harsh inner narratives. "I should have known better. How could I be so stupid?" We may believe this self-criticism will motivate us to improve, but research consistently shows the opposite. Self-shame undermines growth by preventing us from learning from our mistakes. Worse still, it contributes to depression, which saps motivation and obstructs future change. Initially, practicing self-compassion may feel like letting yourself off the hook, as though you're excusing poor choices. But the reality is that self-compassion teaches us to embrace the human quality of imperfection. It allows us to examine our missteps from a calmer, more objective and mindful perspective. From there, we can ask ourselves more productive questions. What can I learn from this? How can I improve? Practicing self-compassion, Shapiro assures us, promotes resilience and the courage to continue after mistakes, setbacks, and failures. If, like me, you find it difficult to extend this kind of grace to yourself, or if you're skeptical of its value, I strongly recommend reading Good Morning, I Love You by Shauna Shapiro, or another respected book on mindfulness and self-compassion. Curiosity. Helen Keller said, "I have the advantage of a mind trained to think, and that is the difference between myself and most people, not my blindness and their sight." The habit of regularly thinking deeply is indispensable when seeking truth. We must ask questions, even difficult ones, and we cannot be content with whatever answers come most readily or appear most convenient. We must resist the impulse, as Sir Joshua Reynolds warned, to employ endless expedients to evade and shuffle off real labor, the real labor of thinking. And perhaps the most valuable questions to ask are those that start with why. Why questions probe deeper into the tree of truth, driving closer and closer to the trunk at the center. In the words of Albert Einstein, the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existence. One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery each day. Patience. Fyodor Dostoevsky advised, "A new philosophy, a new way of life, is not given for nothing. It has to be paid dearly for, and only acquired with much patience and great effort." Learning takes time, a lifetime in fact. Patience is essential not only with our circumstances, but also with ourselves. We are often tempted to demand immediate mastery or quick answers. But, like in the classic fable of the tortoise and the hare, progress is far more important than speed. Even if that progress is so slow as to be barely discernible, he who keeps steadily at work always comes out ahead. Prayerfulness. As Jesus promised, "Ask and it shall be given you, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you." Sometimes the only thing standing between us and the truth is that we haven't asked, sought, or knocked. Many times, when I have long pondered or puzzled over a certain question, clarity has finally arrived in the simple act of privately articulating the question to my Maker. Even if you are not religious, time spent pondering in silence and solitude will open doors previously closed to you. Regularly making time to be alone with our own thoughts invites clarity and insight in a uniquely powerful way. "I have never found the companion," said Henry David Thoreau, "that was so companionable as solitude."